Hey, Carrie.
Hey.
We have a pretty special guest today.
Oh, yes, we do.
It's like that thing, 6 degrees of separation. We're going to be talking to someone today who is friends with Kermit the Frog and all of the Muppets.
I know. I can't believe it. Can you believe it? Like, we've made it to the inner Muppet circle, the inner circle.
I know. Maybe if we're nice to him, he'll introduce us to Pepe and we can go to the next party of the famous people. You're listening to the Pixie Dust Fan Podcast. Hi, I'm Francine.
And I'm Carrie.
We're two best friends who can't stop talking, usually about Disney stuff.
Sometimes we have fascinating guests, and sometimes it's just us. But it's always positive and fun.
We're happy to have you join our chat. Thanks for listening, and let's get started. Kelly, welcome to the podcast. We are so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm super happy to meet the both of you and to be here as well.
Well, we're first so unbelievably flattered that you even listened to our podcast episode. So excited to be able to have the chance to talk to you. I really want to just give our listeners a bit of background about who you are, though, before we start. So you are a screenwriter, television writer, off-Broadway playwright, and story consultant. You have contributed in some fashion to so many of our favorite films, like Ralph Breaks the Internet, Frozen 2, Moana, Raya and the Last Dragon, Cars 3, Incredibles 2, Toy Story 4, Onward, and so much more. But the one big one, we've loved them all, but the big thing that we are so excited about is that you worked on the Muppets Haunted Mansion.
I am excited that you are excited. It is. I mean it's a thrill, and part of what is so fun about a show like this is I've had the chance. I mean, I've had lots of people reach out about podcasts and interviews and things like that, and I'm meeting super fans, which is really fun and also super stressful because you probably know more about Disney and Muppets and Haunted Mansion than I could ever imagine. So I'll do my best. I'll do my best to try to answer any questions.
Well, thank you for joining us. And of course, we are super fans. I mean, Carrie's handle on Instagram is @MuppetCrazy.
That's what I am.
That's what you are. Yeah.
So we're really excited. So can you just tell us a little bit about what your role was on the Muppets Haunted Mansion? And then we, of course, have 1,000 questions for you.
Oh, sure. Sure. Well, I mean, just the simplest answer to that is I was co-writer. So I wrote the script with Bill Beretta, who is a legendary Muppet performer. He is the performer who does Pepe the King Prawn and Dr. Teeth and Ralph the dog. And so and he's sort of the head puppet master. So Bill has been involved with the Muppets since dinosaurs. So I don't mean like
not
when dinosaurs
the dinosaur TV show, Fran.
I mean, dinosaurs TV show, yeah. Bill would kill me. I'm not saying you're that old, Bill. And then also with Kirk Thatcher, who directed the special. And again, Kirk also has had just an epic career with the Muppets, from everything from, Muppets Treasure Island. And I think he actually went back when he was very young, actually worked with Jim Henson when he was a teenager. So, and then also with Jim Lewis, who has also been working with the Muppets since Jim Henson. And but Bill and Kirk and I wrote the actual special, and then I was also a co-executive producer. So was involved in so many aspects of the filming, being there on set and looking at dailies and trying to give feedback on edits and sort of the whole assisting with the whole production. So that specifically, those were my two roles.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
we're just going to say that a lot.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, we're going to say that quite a few times, I'm sure.
Well, and also, what's funny is I would also have to stop and remind myself this is pretty cool, because the actual, production is really hard. Then you add a layer on top of that, which is we produced this all during the pandemic. So we shot the entire special, I think, in only 17 days. And it was under major COVID protocols, constant testing, masks, goggles. It was very difficult to shoot. So not only is it difficult to produce that under those conditions, but producing something with the Muppets has an added layer of difficulty because sets are raised and, you know, there's so many technical aspects that are involved with making it look like it's just the characters that you're seeing. Because, you know, for every character you see, there's one, often two performers underneath them, not to mention all the supporting elements that go around them, just trying to get a single scene or a single shot. So they were very, very long days and nights. And but I would also have to stop myself and go, it's really cool because, you know, we're making a thing with these, you know, some of my most beloved characters from my own childhood.
Was there like one that you were so excited to write for? Like one Muppet where you were like, oh, I can't believe I'm getting to write for this one?
Well, I feel that way about all of them. But because for two things. So on the one hand, the performers themselves, they're like a theater company, or I think about them almost like an acting troupe or a theater troupe. They have performed together for so long. They have a shorthand with each other. They are brilliant improvisers, but they know these characters literally inside and out, right? Like they know these characters. And so for me, for this particular special, Gonzo was a true thrill to work with because it's Dave Goelz, and Dave Goelz is the one and only original Gonzo. So he has been performing this character for over 40 years. And so it was really fun to work with Dave on this character because there are certain things that everybody expects Gonzo to do and to say because we all know and love Gonzo. But then trying to find a new story or trying to find something new that we could do with his character was really fun because, you know, Dave really got into it of like, let's dig deeper into this character and find out really what he's made of. So that to me was really fun, working with him. But also there's this funny thing that happens that when the performers have the characters on, the performers kind of disappear and you end up talking to the character. So if you're in the moment, you're pitching a line, you're doing something like, you know, Eric, who performs Miss Piggy, you know, sometimes if you pitch a line and they don't like it, it's not Eric who tells you, it's Miss Piggy. Like she'll make some sarcastic remark of like, I'm not going to say that. Right. So it's really, it keeps the set really, really fun. It keeps us on our toes. But that to me is what's really fun about writing for them. You know, I sometimes also say I don't write for the Muppets, I write with the Muppets because the performers are such a part of it, right? Like I said, they know these characters, but you know, in the moment, sometimes the whole scene will go off the rails because they start goofing around. But that's always good, in my opinion, because oftentimes when they start goofing around, we find these unexpected things, these unexpected jokes and lines and movements and, you know, eye contact, turning to the camera. So it's very, very fun.
That's very cool. Well, yeah, that was one of our questions. We were saying, like, when you're writing for the Muppets, like, you know, you could be the biggest Muppet fan, but how do you, like, Gonzo says certain things and Pepe speaks a certain way and Miss Piggy, you know, reacts to things a certain way. So, you know, how do you, like, whether you worked with the puppeteers to kind of capture some of that, like, beyond what the regular fan would know to what they would know, because they, like you said, they know them inside and out. So that's very cool.
Yeah. And it's, there are moments where we would write something and one of the performers would go, no, you know, Gonzo wouldn't say that, or Miss Piggy or Fozzie wouldn't say that, or Kermit would not say that. And so you do, like, whenever that happens, I would genuinely stop and check myself and go, okay, listen to why they're saying that. And you'd go, oh, that's right. Like Kermit Kermit is never cynical. Kermit is never sarcastic, right? Like, Pepe is sarcastic. Pepe, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there are certain things where when you're writing for the group or when you're writing for a particular character, sometimes you need a reminder of like, that's right. Like, this is what we're trying to convey. So who's the best character who's going to say that in the most character-driven way? Fozzie he's such an innocent. He's so eager to please. He just wants to be loved. He just wants to earn a laugh, And so it helps when, comedians over time can get kind of jaded, right? Stand-up comedians, because it's just such a rough life.
Yes.
But it's always, important to make sure that like Fozzie is never jaded. Fozzie is never cynical. You throw that up to Statler and Waldorf and let them, sort of pound on him, which is where that dynamic works. But it's tricky to keep in mind, such distinctive personalities and how they play off of each other without blending into one another. Does that make sense?
100%. And how did this story come to be? Like, is there, because there were three of you that wrote together, right? Do you sit in a room and just bounce ideas off each other, or do you each write pieces, or?
Well, okay, so that's interesting. So first and foremost, we never sat in a room. We were never in person. We wrote the entire thing over Zoom.
Wow.
I guess that makes sense considering
we wrote the entire script over Zoom. We did table reads. We met with the performers. We met with the executives. We had meetings. Everything was done over Zoom. And it wasn't until we arrived on set for the first day of production that we all saw each other in person for what had been maybe 8 months or something like that. So that was really fascinating. But how it came about was coming off of Muppets Now. Disney was excited about getting more Muppet content back out there and onto Disney Plus.
Hallelujah!
Yes, more Muppets all the time. So I was having lunch at this was before COVID. I was having lunch at Imagineering with the head of the Muppet Studio, and she said, what do you think about a holiday special? And I was like, I'm all about holiday special. That sounds great. And she said, well, what do you think about Halloween? And that's when I almost jumped up on the table, because Halloween is my most favorite holiday. So she then set a meeting with Bill and Kirk and Jim and myself and some others, and we all sort of came to the table with, and this was in person, we all came to the table with some ideas of like, what could we do? But because how it's structured now, the Muppet Studio is housed within Walt Disney Imagineering. We had that thought of what if we did connect it to one of the attractions. We were Haunted Mansion fans, and we thought, well, what if we're going to do a Halloween special, there's that classic trope of like spending the night in a haunted house. So we started brainstorming, how might we combine this? We knew that we wanted it to feature Gonzo. We knew that, knowing that his character is the great Gonzo, he's fearless, he's a daredevil, seemed like there could be a connection to, well, how do we scare Gonzo? What could really scare this daredevil? So that's how that ball started getting rolling. But we also wanted to make sure that it wasn't Muppets Go to Disneyland, right? It wasn't like that they are actually at the Haunted Mansion. So we worked really hard to make sure that it was like almost like a you would know better than I do, but there's Disneyland, there's Disney World, there's Paris, there's the fourth one in Shanghai, I believe. Is that right? But we wanted it to be a haunted mansion that you'd never heard of, but clearly looked like the same architect or the same kind of design. And in fact, Kirk is just a fanatic over the Haunted Mansion. And so he even went back and looked at some of the very early concept art for the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, which we kind of based our Haunted Mansion on. So that's how we made the connection between, telling a story with the Muppets and with the Haunted Mansion. Luckily, because again, the partnership at Imagineering, we were able to work with the Imagineers in charge of the attraction. So they shared with us, a super top secret, it's called a Bible, the show Bible, but it is, hundreds of pages of the backstory, the mythology, the history, everything of the Haunted Mansion, because we also knew we had an obligation to get it right, even though Muppets are famous for, having fun with it and sort of, and changing things and making a parody of things. So it was great. So we really worked closely with them, to make sure that we, knew what was actually part of the mansion. Sometimes there were things that were like, no, that's fan fiction. That's not official. That's just out there on the internet. It's not true. And we're like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. So, so they were really great, great guides. So that's how it all got started.
You totally got them both right. Like we were.
Oh my goodness!
It was. it couldn't have been more perfect for Muppet fans and Haunted Mansion fans. Like it was like the perfect love letter to both. Like it was. Exactly. It was perfect.
Love letter. That's a great way. Love letter is a great way. I used to say it's like it's a Valentine to both, because there was such love behind it, and we were making it's a family show. We wanted families to watch this together. And for those who know a lot about the mansion or a lot about the Muppets or both or neither, to just really enjoy, just a fun holiday special.
We did. In fact, I don't know how many times now I've watched it and I'm still laughing out loud.
Okay, that's good. I've seen it about 45 times.
Oh, I've got it down. Catching up. So one thing though, with the first thing that made me laugh out loud, which I said in the podcast, was the goat. Like, oh my goodness! Like, how does that goat come into the picture and her screaming multiple times? Like, even at the end, yes. It still keeps you laughing.
Yes. So Julianne she's a wonderful Muppets performer. And what I find so charming is that Julianne, she's so talented, but she's kind of quiet. She's kind of introverted, and she's not the loudest one in the room. But when she puts on that goat, it is like, everything stops, because it's a primal scream that comes out. So it's hilarious, and we couldn't even. There was more of the goat, right? Like we had the goat popping up in other places, but just because of time constraints and trying to keep the story really moving along, we couldn't use as much of the goat as we wanted. But I agree. We were trying to think of, that iconic moment in the attraction when the lights go out in the stretch room, and you remember you look up and there's someone hanging from the rafters. Well, we can't show someone hanging from the rafters. So we're like, well, how are we going to get that scream in there? And we were like, I know the perfect character to get the scream in there. Yes.
I think at that point too is where it really feels like it's the Muppets at that point. Like from that point on, because I think the first part of the opening, yes. I'm so wowed that it's just like the Haunted Mansion. Like I didn't know what to expect from the Muppets nor the Haunted Mansion, but right. When they're going up to the house and then the welcome ghost host, whatever, I think I was so like, oh my goodness, Haunted Mansion. But that goat and then the mummy, dun dun
yes,
dun,
mummy and Duddy, yes.
And the goat, and from that point on, that's when I kind of sunk in. It was like, this is going to deliver exactly what the Muppets are going to deliver. Amazing.
Great.
Dum,
well,
dum, dum.
I'm so glad that you responded that way, because obviously that was it's very deliberate, because there is that classic Muppet way of doing things, right? Which is, on the one hand, chaos, right? Like there's always an element of chaos. Like at any minute, everything can go wrong. And that's where I think the fun is. sort of keeping the show going, right? There's always that sense of like at any minute things can just go terribly wrong. On the other hand, there's that classic Muppets like looking at the camera, breaking the fourth wall, making really bad puns, but like sort of disrupting expectations, right? My favorite moment in that scene is when the lights go out and Will Arnett does the laugh and Gonzo's like, wait a minute. Do you mean like get out of the house or out of the room? And the lights go out. He's like, you're kind of killing the moment. He's like, I'm sorry. I just want like, and then we go back out. Right. So
Pepe, I found the way out.
Yes, exactly. So we're always trying to find those moments where, and it's funny because you're writing the script, but while you're writing the script, you're trying to find those moments where the characters are going to go off script. So it's sort of a weird experience of trying to purposefully undermine yourself in what you're doing. Does that make sense?
It does.
So trying to find those moments.
Was there like one joke or gag or scene that made you guys like just bust a gut? Like you were like, were you spending the days like laughing?
Yeah, probably all of those were cut because they were. we probably went too far. I mean, there really are too many. But to answer your question, yes, we did. There just was so much laughter going on in terms of the writing of it because, everyone's crazy and the characters are crazy, but we also wanted to make sure that there was heart and that there was fear. Like we also wanted it to be scary. We wanted some real jump scares in there. But when I think this gets back to your earlier question, that also has to do with sort of having fun, was that we would be in the Zoom room, the three or the four of us, and the first pass that we took, we had sort of beat out the general beats of the story, like sort of where kind of connecting the dots of how we think the plot is going to go. Then what we did is we divided it up for that first pass. So I believe Bill took the first third, and then the other 2/3, Kirk and I divided up where he did most of the bride in the attic scenes, and then I did most of the room 999 scenes. So then when we all sort of did our part, then we got back together and tried to mash it together. And then for the next several weeks and months, we just kept fine tuning and going and pitching and trying to punch up and trying to make it work. And but there were lots of scenes that we wanted, but we just couldn't do because of time. Mm-hmm. We had there's a moment where I think Gonzo says something like, you could screw off my head and you wouldn't find any fear inside or something like that. And Will, or the host, goes, well, that could be arranged. Well, we had this idea that if they opened a door and we would go into a laboratory that would have Bunsen and Beaker and Van Nuter and Gulch or Mulch. What's his name? Gulch? Mulch? Mulch, I think. And we were going to do a whole thing like a Frankenstein's lab where we were going to unscrew Gonzo's head and look inside and all this kind of stuff. But it literally, that costs a lot of money and it takes up a lot of time. And so we had to choose. And so that's why when Bunsen and Beaker are the bus and Bunsen goes, I wish we'd had a bigger cameo, and Beaker meeps, and then he's like, it's budget. Like, that's actually true. That really is the reason that they weren't, that they didn't get a bigger part. Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
oh boy,
so there were
cool.
lots of fun. There were lots of fun things that, and also there were things that, we didn't need, like, because we didn't want to overstuff it. We didn't want this to be, because truth be told, it's not a movie, it's a special. And so it couldn't be, 80 or 90 minutes like a typical sort of Muppet movie is. We really wanted to get it into that kind of classic television holiday special time frame. So we just, you had to make choices. That's all.
We would have watched a 90-minute movie.
Yes.
For some reason, I haven't talked and I have a frog in my throat. It must be Kermit.
That's Kermit.
Mm-hmm.
I was very glad it was as long as it was, because I was afraid it was going to be very, like 30 minutes, and then I would be like, what, where, how,
Yes.
like, how come so short? So when I saw that it was almost a full hour, I was very excited. Very excited.
Good. Yes. And also,
I have questions, but I can't talk right now.
Okay. What are you, can you write them down and hold them up to the camera, and I will attempt to read them.
I think I'm good now. Okay. Kermit's here and he's gone. He's left.
Okay.
What about the music? Fran and I both love the music. So did you wrote the music over Zoom, or when, like, at what point in the process do you write the music? Because the songs are so fun. Like,
yeah. Oh, well, that's great. So, yeah, I mean, the technical challenge was we were writing the script before we knew what songs we would have or want, or really kind of where they would go. So we knew that obviously we wanted an opening number, and we knew that we wanted some kind of closing fun finale. We knew that we wanted a showstopper in the grand ballroom, because everybody loves when as many Muppets as possible are together at the same time. So we knew we wanted something big there. And then we also knew that we wanted something for the bride. We wanted some kind of fun seduction song. So we had very vague ideas of what kinds of things would kind of go where, but we had to write without knowing that. So then a kind of interesting thing happened, which was, like I said, before the pandemic, we had gotten started. We had gotten the green light from Disney, and we were about ready to go, and everything stopped. They hit pause on everything. So there were a couple of months there of like, we didn't know, was this going to happen? Was anything going to happen? No one knew anything. So several months went by, and we were just getting the sinking feeling of, it's just not going to happen. And I was super depressed about that. And I had an idea for the ballroom song, and it was kind of a spoof of Be Our Guest, but I was calling it Be Our Ghost. And I wrote out, I just, for the fun of it, I wrote lyrics. And I sent them to Bill and Kirk, and just in like a, hey, thinking of you all, here's a song we're never going to sing. Like, wouldn't this have been fun? Right. It was just kind of a sad, well, then a couple weeks later, we started to hear like, hey, it might be back on. Like we're trying to figure out how this could still happen. So what I wrote in isolation actually then became, what eventually would become Life Hereafter. And so, we took a lot of, and if you really, pay attention, you can see some of the homage that's in there to be our ghost, be our guest, because we wanted it to sort of have that kind of Disney feel, but also be a new original Muppet song. So Bill and Kirk and I worked on all of the lyrics for all the music. Then we met with Steve Morell and Ed Mitchell, who are also longtime Muppets composers and songwriters. And then again, over Zoom, just pitching stuff back and forth and having meetings and sharing lyrics. And, Bill saying, I feel like the bride song should have kind of a Pepe influenced, because it's all, part of the mansion is it sort of, it harkens to your own fears and desires. So of course for Pepe, it would be a very seductive tango. So, but that's all we had to do is say to Steve and Ed, like, I don't know, like something kind of like a tango, like a seductive, dangerous tango. And they were like, got it. And then the next day they would send us an MP3 and we're like, oh my God, like this is perfect. And then we'd adjust lyrics and then we would, change things in the moment. So that's sort of how the music came about.
Is it harder to write lyrics for Muppets than it is other characters, like the pigs and frogs and gonzos?
Well, it's a really good question, because it it's harder to write for Muppets just in general. Not only because of all the things I've already said about just, they're chaotic and they're crazy and they're fun, but if you think about it, Kermit is the only character that really has a face that can be manipulated and is pretty. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
Kermit does the great. Like his face can scrunch up, and Kermit's face is so expressive. But if you really look at them all, for the most part, most of the Muppets' faces are pretty static, right? Gonzo could do this great.
Of that.
Yeah, so Gonzo does this great thing with his eyes can widen a little bit, and Piggy her snout can kind of she can kind of her lower lip can kind of come out a little bit, but for the most part they you can't get a lot of subtext with Muppets, right? Like you can't. And also, nobody wants to see a puppet think, right? Like nobody wants to watch a puppet think. So it is challenging to write for them because most of their expression and most of their humor and everything has to come through what they say and how they sort of physically move their bodies. This is why I think there's those great moments where there's always that subtle, just little turn towards the camera where they just kind of make a little glance and make eye contact with the camera. It kills me every time because their faces don't change at all, but they just lock eyes with you. And it gives you it's like a little trick. It gives you a moment of going like, oh my God, I know what they're thinking and feeling. Does that make sense? So it's tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I've never even thought about it. Like until you just said it. You're right. Like it's amazing how much emotion they can convey when their faces don't change.
That's right. And so much of it, and this is where the performers are such masters, right? So much of it is, what they're doing with their voices, their tone, their timing, their sort of their movements of the characters' bodies. But all of it has to do with those sight lines, and honestly, so much time is spent on set trying to make sure that their sight lines are correct. Because if there's ever a moment where Pepe and Gonzo, it looks like they're not quite looking at each other, then they look like puppets. They look like puppets. But when they look at each other and you see that their eyes are locked in, then they're Muppets. And so it takes a lot of work, and there's a lot of the tiniest bit of adjusting. And Kirk or Bill or whoever was not performing, they're right there going like down, left, great, there. And then they would do the scene and make sure that the sight lines are matched up, because that makes the difference. Otherwise it's a puppet show, right?
Yes.
But it's when we feel like we're connecting with them through eye contact is when they really come to life, in my opinion. So it's tricky to write for them because they can't have internal monologues, just it's not possible. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because we obviously we know there's performers, but when Carrie and I were talking about this interview and we were like, well, what do you think? Like, how does that work for Kermit and Piggy and Gonzo? And we're talking about them like they were actors, but not talking about the performers. We were talking about Gonzo and Pepe like they were real.
Right. Right. Well, to me, that's the biggest compliment to the performers.
Yes.
It truly is. I mean, they're just pros. And I think that's the goal, is that at some level, the performer disappears so that the character takes over. I think at some level, the writer disappears so that the characters can take over. But again, if you could see shots from set, it takes a lot of work to make everybody disappear. So for most of the shooting, they're on these very low sort of wheelie chairs that they can kind of roam around on. And I would be on one too, or I'd be right nearby on a microphone and a headset, either, pitching lines or feeding lines, because they're also trying to look at monitors to check their sight lines. They're doing sound. And so I would often be right in there with them, which, I mean, just what a dream for a writer to be down in there with them. But then they would also just make fun of me, constantly, for like, who wrote this? And they would talk to me in character and they'd throw pages in the garbage and, like, so it's really great fun.
Wow.
You said that was
so much fun.
That was a great compliment for the performers. What's the best compliment you've heard so far about the Muppets Haunted Mansion? Is there one that sort of got to you?
That's a great question. I mean, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled with the reaction. I think so many people are just having a joyful reaction to it, and that makes me very happy. I try very hard not to read any reviews or anything like that because it's just that, it's just I learned that the hard way a long time ago. I just don't do that. But from what
let me at him. You send them to me, y'all. Let me at him.
Well, and I'm not saying that reviews aren't helpful. In my opinion, a good review is something that is, I think that they can be constructive, they can be destructive. I think the best reviews are instructive, which is like, what can we learn? What can we learn from this? So I have filters to sort of get to those. But I'll tell you the best moment I had was we had a little backyard viewing party when it came out, and we had some close friends and family over, and we set up an outdoor movie theater in the backyard, and all of our chairs and blankets and heaters and Halloween. My wife did Halloween themed appetizers. There were like Bunsen honeydew melon skewers, and they were all sort of themed. It was really great. There was Pepe the King prawn. She had shrimp, and so it was very fun. But a friend of ours, their little boy is about 2.5 years old, and he watched the whole thing on his chair, up on his knees, leaning forward. And when Gonzo was about to open the door to the seance room, he goes, "Don't open the door!" and so to me, that was like the best thing I heard. The best response was an audience, a kid, like so into it, so along for the ride and having so much fun. So I think no matter what anybody says, all the positive and any negative is out there. I just feel like, being in that moment when an audience member was like, "I am all in." And that's where I was like, this is literally the 46th time that I've seen this. And it was more enjoyable for me to watch people watch it.
Right.
Which has been really fun.
How did you decide which of the things of the Haunted Mansion to kind of put in? Like the ride stopping, like that I almost fell off the couch. I thought that was just priceless.
That's great. Yes. Yeah. I mean, we're big fans. I said, Kirk is a huge fan, and I've always been a fan. I mean, my favorite, I grew up in Southern California, so my whole life I've gone to Disneyland, and Haunted Mansion is one of my top three, right? But my favorite rides at the parks are the dark rides, are those ones that, Snow White's Scary Adventure and Peter Pan and Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, I love those rides where you go on a journey. It's a real story, that there's a narrative. And then when you come out again, you feel, like you went somewhere, you went to another world, or you just experienced some kind of story. So I've always loved the Haunted Mansion for that experience. And we knew we wanted to put as much in as we could. We also wanted to do new stuff. This is where Room 999 came from, is we wanted to have fun going like, this is a different mansion, and here's something that you've never seen, which is where that came from. Of course, we knew Statler and Waldorf had to go into the Doom buggies. We just like, there's no better balcony for them. And again, they would be the perfect vehicle to just keep reminding us that what we're watching is a special, in that Muppet way. So when we knew they were going to sweep by in the ballroom to heckle Gauzy the Hatbox Bear. I forget who said it, but we were like, oh God, like it has to break down because we got to turn the lights on. It has to break down. And the voice who says, please remain seated in your doom. That's Kirk. That's Kirk Thatcher's voice who does that. So we knew that had to happen. And then our incredible production designer, Darcy Prevost, did an unbelievable job of not only, showing what would be familiar and expected in the mansion, but then also Muppetizing it. And I don't know if you've seen, there's so many Easter eggs, and I think people are writing about all the Easter eggs that they're finding, but very subtle little things like in the ballroom or when Sweetums is coming down the hallway, in the architecture is Sam Eagle's beak as part of the sconces. And in some of the doors, there's Dog Lion, or up above the door is an outline of Sweetum's face, the wallpaper. So there's just all these amazing little touches that are an homage to the mansion, but then also new things that, that are all about the Muppets.
Do you have a favorite Easter egg that you guys put in?
Personally, my favorite Easter egg, and I'm actually telling you something I haven't told anybody yet, just so you know.
So we have a good question.
I was just thinking about posting this. Personally, so when in the limo, when Pepe holds up his phone because he's trying to find a date to the Hollywood Mansions party, and Gonzo's like, well, what are they all saying? And all the rejection texts show up. The one in the middle, I think, the name says Steph, and it's for Stephanie, and my wife's name is Stephanie. So I snuck her name into the little one of Pepe's girlfriends who is rejecting him.
That is so fantastic.
Oh, yes. That's so cool.
That's a deep, very personal Easter egg. But there's so many others. Obviously, the address of the mansion is 924, which is Jim Henson's birthday, September 24th. Kermit's eyes appear in the gate to the mansion in the architecture. There's so many, but yeah, that's a little personal, secret, private Easter egg for me.
Oh,
yeah,
I love it.
Those text messages had me laughing. So with the one that said "Who dis?" and I was like, howling. I couldn't believe it. Oh, right, that was funny. Right. I had to go back and pause the scene so I could read them all. Yeah, that was good.
Right. Yeah, now that's great.
I have to ask them falling out the window at the end.
Yes.
Was that one of the things they said that's lore, or is that in that 1,000-page binder booklet?
You mean of them jumping out? You mean the
at the very end? So yeah, at the end,
and jumping out of the attic.
Yeah.
Yes. I think they needed an escape. I don't know. Is there lore around that about being able to jump out the window?
There is.
What is that?
Fran can explain because she loves this.
Okay.
So Carrie and I, we did a whole episode on this because we always argue over this, whether it's intentional or not. In the Haunted Mansion, when you come out of that scene with the bride and you come out of a window and then your doom buggy tips back in the attraction. It tips backwards, and then all of a sudden you're on the ground.
The graveyard, right?
Yes. So the lore is that you actually fall out of the window, and when you hit the ground, you are now one of the ghosts, and that's why it's a big party, and they're all celebrating that you're now one of them.
Oh, okay. In that case, yes, that was totally intentional.
Because I always say that that's part of the story of the Haunted Mansion. And Carrie says, no, that's fan fiction that was made up.
Okay. You know what? I would have to look into that.
You'll have to let us know.
I think that works. Yeah. What we did know is we needed an escape, and we had to we needed to get back to the graveyard. And I think what we were more playing with was that threshold at the gate of them, you know, they have to get across, otherwise they are going to be stuck there forever. But I love that idea that you found that connection in there. Maybe it's true. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess how else, like it makes sense. That's how you got them out, because they were up in the attic and they had to get out. But like you said, that's part of the ride.
Yeah. And what we wanted to avoid was, because the mansion is so much bigger inside than it appears to be outside, is when they were escaping, we didn't want to have to like run through every single room in order to get back to the foyer or to get outside. So we needed a quick escape. And we did a little bit of that running. I mean, my favorite other little Easter egg is when Andy and Randy, the pigs, you know, from The Shining, when they go, "Come play with us, Gonzo," right? Like, we just, you know, throwing little things in there like that would always just make us laugh. But we need, you know, and there's that storytelling thing too of like, once the character achieves their goal, which is like, I'm rescuing my friend, then it's got to be bam, bam, bam. We got to get to the end. There's no stalling. There's no time to stop and do anything. We just have to get out. So I think that's what motivated the crash out through the window. But I'll ask our Imagineer friends if we stumbled onto something or if that was intentional.
Oh, you'll have to let us know if it was.
Okay.
So, why Pepe? Like, I gotta tell you, I love Pepe. I think he was just fantastic, and he made me laugh, and he had such good lines about the famous peoples and. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The Bard Pits.
Yes. Oh, we actually had a whole scene where we got into the famous people's room and we had a character who was Bart Pitts. And so, but again, it just was timing on everything. So, you know, we knew we wanted it to be kind of a classic buddy special or buddy story. And, you know, it harkens back a little bit to that kind of Abbott and Costello dynamic. And we just think that there's something so funny about Pepe's character, which is he always says what he's thinking, especially when it's inappropriate. And he's just so driven by his hunger for, you know, for the monies and, you know, and beautiful peoples. And, you know, so he was a good contrast for Gonzo. And, you know, and we also wanted to make sure that we featured Kermit and Miss Piggy and Fozzie, you know, and I know that their roles were smaller, but we also thought that, you know, that there's a way there's such rich diversity of these characters that, you know, looking for new stories with characters that might be a little bit more unexpected, that maybe fans don't know as well, or that they don't normally get featured, to me seems like the most fun that we can start to have, is, you know, who, you know, they've all got stories to tell. They've all got these incredible backstories. There is a Muppets character Bible as well that is massive, and just the deep backstory of, you know, of who these characters are and where they're from and what makes them tick. And so I think diving into, you know, a lot of new stories that can be told with some of these other characters is really, really exciting.
It was just, it was like, it was the perfect pairing. Like, you were trying to go for that Abbott and Costello. It was the perfect pairing. Yeah. They played off each other. They played off each other so well.
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, what's fun too is, you know, I thought we had a great cast of human actors, and the most fun, in my opinion, is when the Muppets are really in the lead. They are the leads, and that the human actors, obviously just lots of fun cameos, but that the human actors are sort of playing, you know, second to our lead characters. And that's where I thought our cast did such a great job. They had so much fun playing with the Muppets, and all the stuff that happened off camera, which I can't even talk about, was just absolutely hilarious and, you know, really, really great fun.
It was amazing to see those cameos. Like, we didn't even know who some of them were till we checked the credits. The makeup was so good.
Yes. Yeah. It's really fun. And, everybody wants to work with the Muppets.
That's what I was just going to say. I wonder if anybody turns down a request to work with the Muppets, because it's got to be on everybody's list. Like if you're in the industry, I'm sure you've got a lot of things, but I'm sure one of them close to the top is work with the Muppets.
Yes,
that's what I would think.
That tends to be the reaction, and in my experience so far, the only times there have been a decline, it's just because of timing. It just literally has to do with like, oh God, I want to do it, but I'm in Croatia filming something, or I really, but please keep me on the list. When's the next thing that you're doing? So it's really great.
Yeah, I didn't even like Pat Sajak. I didn't even recognize him.
Yes.
Until I looked at the credits, I was like, oh my gosh, I had to go back and watch again and see where he was.
Yes, yeah, it's very fun. He's a huge Muppets fan. And Yvette Nicole Brown is a major Muppets fan, and she is so delightful. Same with Chrissy Metz, same with Darren Criss. Darren brought his mom to set. I think it was her birthday. And so I think I remember all the characters that we had out. She even got in on the Dancing with the Moonlight credits at the end, and everyone sang happy birthday to her. So it was very sweet, very fun. Yeah.
Wow. That would be like all your Christmases come true, Carrie, to go into a set like that with the Muppets.
My goodness. I'll sweep the floors. I'll pull the tape off, put the tape back on the floors, whatever.
Based on our budget, we'll probably have to ask you to do those.
Yeah, I'll do anything.
Yes, yeah. Volunteer.
Free. You know what my price is? I'm free 99. Free.
Free 99. That's
free
great.
99.
That's great. Yes. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. This I can't even tell you how much fun this is. Do you think you guys will ever do anything else pairing the Muppets with I'm like, Carrie and I were like
asking for a friend. She's
asking for a friend. I'm like, what about It's a Small World? They could go on a journey and It's a Small World. They could go on Peter Pan. They could do a holiday overlay in Walt Disney World. You know, in Disneyland they do that big overlay. Maybe they could do the holiday overlay in Walt Disney World with the Muppets. Bring Gonzo into the mansion. Wouldn't that be
I approve that.
You approve. Carrie and Francine approve. So then that's all we needed was your approval, because it got us through all the red tape. Yes. I'm getting asked that a lot. We all are. And everybody is saying, oh, what about this? And what about that? And what I love is that everybody is thinking about the Muppets in these new ways, which is really exciting. And what I can tell you is, that the Muppet Studio is, has lots of really, really great and exciting things planned. So that's all I can say. But I think, I think the future is bright.
Carrie is like a kid the night before Christmas. She's so excited now.
I really liked Muppets Now. I was rewatching them we just came home from Walt Disney World, so I was watching them again on the plane, and I love how it kind of brings back to like they're just skits, like it's a variety show but different, right? Like bring it to but oh my goodness, so I'm excited to see if there's more of Muppets Now or something different. I don't know. I don't agree with Fran that they should put Muppets in every ride at Disney. That's the difference between a diehard Disney fan and a diehard Muppet
fan. Yes, I know. I did an interview with sort of like a horror film something or other, because I'm terrified of horror movies, and so they were like, do you think there'll ever be like an actual Muppets horror movie? And I was like, no. Like, why would you? Yes, no. And then I started pitching like, well, but like maybe Gonzo and Camilla do like Poultrygeist, or we could do like Swedish Chef doing Silence of the Lamb Chops, like whatever they like just like. But there's no like the Muppets. They can't do actual horror,
Those are like spoof posters that you see in some sort of a Muppet thing.
Yes. Well, and we talked a lot about this with Haunted Mansion, which is, the heart of the Haunted Mansion is grim grinning. And we reminded ourselves a lot that if something was ever getting a little too grim, then we needed a joke. We had to lighten it up. Or if something was getting a little too jokey, we had to kind of go back to, this is we want this to be spooky. We want it to be, kind of scary. But I think that that's what the mansion balances so well, is that it's grim and it's grinning. And so we wanted the Muppets to also do that, right? Like we wanted to constantly go back and forth between those two. Because I think if you went too far in either direction, I don't think it would have worked as well.
And you grew up going to Disneyland. Are you a fan of Walt Disney World as well?
I mean, I'm afraid to say to the two who literally just got back, and I get the impression you go there every other Thursday or something. But I've only ever been there once. I've only been to Walt Disney World once with my family and my manager's family, and thank God that he organized it, because he's a manager. He had every ride down, and we knew where to go. I was absolutely overwhelmed. It was like growing up at Disneyland. I know it inside and out. And at Disney World, I was like, this is a whole planet.
Yes.
This is it was just enormous. And also it was like 99 degrees and raining. And I was like, I don't understand where I am or how this works. Like this is, but I remember going through Magic Kingdom and going like, okay, I got this. I know, it's like it's in me to know the lay of the land. And it feels like Disneyland, but like 30% wider or bigger. Like the streets are a little bit bigger. Things. And I also remember going on Haunted Mansion and being like, what is this room? And where are so there were lots of things that, were very new to me and very fun. So I'd like to go back. And then we also did go to that part of the park for Muppets 3D and that section too. So I made sure to hit that when we were there.
Yes. Yeah, we were just in Walt Disney World. Carrie's a huge Disneyland fan.
I love Disneyland.
I love Disneyland too, but I'm more of a Walt Disney World girl. She's more of a Disneyland girl. So we always have that sort of yin and yang going on between the two of us. But we did go. Yeah. We made sure to go see the Muppets 3D, of course, while we were in Walt Disney World.
Good. Yeah. I mean, I just think these really are magical places, and I've had the opportunity a couple of times to go there in what's called the third shift. I don't know if you know about this. You know what the third shift is basically from midnight when the park is closed, from like midnight to 5 or 6 a.m. And I've had the opportunity to walk through the Haunted Mansion and Pirates and some other rides with the lights on. Which is really great, because sometimes depending on a project that you're working on, it gives you, to get that close can really help you, or to just get a real sense of the place is pretty fun. But yeah, it's cool to see the behind the scenes. And people think, well, doesn't that ruin the magic for you? To me, it heightens it. To me, now when I go on some of these rides, I'm like, I actually know what's behind that door, or I know how that works. So to me, it actually just increases the enjoyment of it.
That's fantastic. Oh, that would be.
Oh, let me tell you one last quick story, which is speaking of sort of going through the ride and having an insider view of it. So, we had Kim Irvine as a cameo, who is the daughter of Madame Leota, and herself, when they do the overlay, Kim does Madame Leota as well, and Minnie Leota, I think they call her. But so she was on set to do the Miss Piggy scene. And I asked her, I said, and also she's an incredibly accomplished Imagineer. Like she really has had a hand in some of the most magical parts of the parks. I said, what was it like? What was it like growing up knowing that your mom was Madame Leota? She said, it was always really fun as a kid. But she said the most fun I had is when she had her own family, when she would take her kids on the ride on the Haunted Mansion. When they'd get to the seance room, she would turn to her kids in the dune buggy and go, "Everybody wave at Grandma." Yeah. So, having an actual Disney legend on set with us it was pretty incredible.
That is. Were you starstruck, or were you like on anybody that was on set, including the Muppets?
Well, the Muppets are always, they're always fun. I mean, I think, meeting Ed Asner was pretty special, and to have this be the last thing that he did is also something, that I don't think anybody will ever forget. I mean, I think he's truly incredible. Will Arnett is so funny, so fast, just so brilliant. Taraji was absolutely lovely. She committed to that part. And, again, it's hard enough to film a Muppet production, but also sometimes actors get in there and they're expecting to film it in a way that they're used to. And suddenly they're like, wait, what's happening? Like, they're standing up on a riser. There's people all around their feet. And they're like, what is going on? There's a lot going on that they have to ignore more than just your typical set. And sometimes that freaks actors out. Like, it's a little bit unnerving if they're not expecting it. So, I think all of them really committed to it and really, really had a lot of fun. Chrissy Metz was so great. And in fact, there's a line where the bride says to Pepe, "My sweet water meat." And that actually came from Chrissy, because when we were filming her opera scene in the graveyard, I think she was talking about Florida or something, and she referred to fish as water meat. And I was like, what is that? What is that? She's like, it's fish. I was like, we're using that. We're add that to Pepe right now. So there was a lot of fun, ad-libbing and things that we were doing on set that ended up making it into the special.
That must be amazing to watch back and see those come in and know that they worked so well when you put them in. I can tell.
Yeah.
It was everything we could have hoped for.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, I'm so happy that you liked it. I'm so happy to chat with you about this. It's just absolutely delightful.
And we're telling everybody else to watch it too, and telling everybody how awesome it is.
Yeah. Well, we were telling people on the plane basically yesterday, because the two of us were both watching it side by side and laughing out loud on the plane. So, Kelly, I can't even thank you enough for listening to our podcast in the first place, but for joining us for this conversation. It's been amazing. And I hope that we can chat with you again in the future about new stuff and
sure.
Yeah, anything Muppet or related, we'd love to chat with you again.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
My pleasure, and tell your listeners. So I'm on Instagram at Kelly the Younger, and I'll be posting more sort of behind the scenes things and little Muppets Easter eggs and trivia things like that if they'd like to see more. And then absolutely, when more things come up in the future, we'll be sure to chat. This has been really fun.
It's been amazing. Thank you so much, and I'll put all your contact info in the show notes as well.
Great. That sounds great. Awesome. All right. Have a great rest of the day. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Oh, Carrie, can you believe we just talked to him?
That was amazing. Totally amazing. Best hour ever.
I know. I can't believe that we got to talk to him. Like, that was awesome. He's so much fun.
Mm-hmm. So awesome. That's all I'm going to say. So awesome.
I know. And I feel like when we listen to this episode again, we're going to sound like idiots.
So
that's
cool.
So cool. So cool.
So
that was cool.
Oh my God. So cool. But that's okay.
That's basically the two of us for the whole hour. That's cool. Really? Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to sound like a bunch of boneheads, but that's okay. We were very excited.
Yeah, and this kind of came about at the last minute because
Yes.
we had planned to talk about our trip over the next couple of episodes, and we will.
We will. Yeah,
We will
coming up.
soon. Next. Yep, coming up. Well, I think we have a lot to talk about our
We
trip.
have tons to talk about, but this one we wanted to get in before Halloween. So it's kind of, you and I ended up talking. So our pixie dust this week, we have the same pixie dust this week because we had like a pretty epic day while we were away. And it was the day that Kelly reached out to us and said he listened to our podcast. Do you remember when we got that note? We were
Not really, because I was lightheaded soon after.
we were walking into Epcot. We were at the beach club. We were walking into Epcot, and we were in the security line. Like, we were in the line to go through the metal detector, and I was like, Carrie, do you want to read this? Yeah, we like had to sit down. We were
all giddy and excited.
Well, yeah, because in his note he said we were delightful.
I don't know. Oh dear.
Yeah. So I think from then on it was like we were walking on a cloud, and yeah, like it was pretty fantastic. So we were so excited. So once we were chatting with them, we decided that we were going to record this episode, and we wanted to get it out before Halloween. So that's why this episode's coming out first, and then our next couple episodes we're going to talk about our trip. Mm-hmm. We have lots to discuss. We did new testing. We stayed in 2 resorts. We celebrated some pretty big stuff.
Big birthday.
And we walked a lot. I think we decided that we walked more in that last week than we have in the last 18 months.
Easily. Hands down, 10 hands down. Is that possible? Is that a way to say it?
Yeah. So we've got lots to discuss about that. So upcoming trip reports. So let us know whatever questions you guys have for our upcoming episodes. But I hope you enjoyed this one. It was pretty
and
epic.
watch Muppets Haunted Mansion if you haven't watched it yet.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna watch it again and again. Now I gotta go back and watch the stuff that Kelly said that I didn't.
I gotta watch it again.
Yeah, I know. Here we go again. All right, till next week. Thanks again for listening.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Pixie Dust Fan Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode.
Make sure you're following us on your favorite podcast player so you'll get a new episode every week. And find us on social media too. We'd love to hear from you.
Till next time, remember, you are never too old to be young. Chase your dreams and design your own happily ever after.